This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another one of our speaker series. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's 3:02 on a very sunny and warm Thursday. It's June 25th, and we're here with Chris Eckelkamp, who is a vocational specialist with Northeast Metropolitan Regional Vocational High School. That needs an acronym. He's an Eagle Scout from Troop 81 in Chelmsford, former Order of the Arrow Lodge Chief, and he's also a former camp staff member of Camp Watauga in Northwood, New Hampshire. Chris has enjoyed graphic arts for a long time, since a very early age, when he was a layout artist and editor of the OA newsletter Turtle Topics. He got his degree in graphic arts technology at Springfield Technical Community College, where he produced the class yearbook on campus. He has been top trade companies in printing and graphic arts, such as Composing Room of Boston, Type House of Boston, and Acme Printing as a designer consultant. He now teaches the trade, engaging students to explore their talents in graphic arts and drafting at Northeast Metro Tech in Wakefield, Massachusetts. Without further ado, to tell us more about graphic arts and probably some scouting history, Chris Eckelkamp. Thanks for coming in, Chris.
Well, thank you, Chuck. I'm honored to be asked to do these kinds of things. I always love sharing my skills and trade with young people, and that's why I took up the teaching role. I probably got into it from the onset because my father's an artist and a graphic artist, and originally born in St. Louis, Missouri. We moved out here because he took a better job in the graphic arts field, and I was upset that I had to move all the way across the country. But turns out I never would have had all this great opportunity in scouting and graphic arts and all that. As a young man, I was I go to visit my dad in his graphic shop, and he had one of these machines called a typositor, and it had two little wheels on it. You wheel it this way and you wheel it that way, and the film goes through, and you pick a letter, you line up on the letter, you press a button, and it exposes on a piece of paper. Then you move the paper over just the right amount for the next letter, and you put the letter, and then you wheel it over, and you do that, and you do it, and you expose it on the paper. And those were called headliners or typositors. And I was the one who had to clean it up as a kid. I'm a kid, and I'm cleaning this machine. And there on, I went on into college for graphic arts. Got out into the trade. I looked at the newspaper, found my first job, graphic typographer. Okay, great. I interview for the job. I walk in the room. The guy says, okay, well, have you seen, let me show you this. He brings me into this dark room where there's the machine, because it's photosensitive. And he shows me the machine. I said, oh, yeah, typositor. And he goes, what? You know what that is? You're hired. Just like that. I got hired on the job because I knew what the machine was, and I helped my dad clean it when I was little. So, and from there, it was a lot of fun. I went on to do some camera work in the dark room where you take line shots and pictures on a big bellows camera, and I was able to get 4 different sizes all on one piece of paper, and the guy was totally impressed with that. He's like, okay, great, you know what you're doing. But like anything, if you're really good at what you do and you really want to keep doing it, you don't stay in one place too long. You challenge yourself even more. And so I went on and started my own company for a few years with a scouting friend, Kevin Richardson. We were Richardson and Eckelkamp. We had a big sign downtown Lowell. We had Scott Shabru was our salesman, and I did exactly what my college professor told me not to do. Don't go out and start your own business. And he was right. Didn't work. We went south pretty quick. I mean, we did some fun projects. We did a lot of cool things and stuff, but we just made enough money to pay for the equipment. You didn't take home any, thank God I was still eating off my mom's dinner table. But after that, I got lucky and got working with a small print shop, and I learned the mechanical aspects of graphic arts, the production side of it, and that was interesting. I love that part of it, machines, and now it's all computer driven. And from there, I was doing side work. I always pick up on some side work. It's always good to do. Keeps your creative flow going and keeps your interest in the field. And the side work, I was doing stuff for Reebok. Reebok had these catalogs that they would put out, these apparel catalogs, not the shoes, but the apparel. So that would be their jackets and their fancy hats and whatnot and stuff. And there was this guy, he would draw them on the computer, but he didn't know how to set them up, or needed help setting up the catalog pages. So we'd step and repeat all these different apparel clothing lines with different designs and patterns, all drawn on the computer and all automated. And I created a quick way of doing those pages, and I was hired again on the side. That led me to work for the printing company that printed the catalogs, because they saw this guy's good, we need him to do this. And now I met the vice president of Reebok, and he's coming in, I like your work, you got to do this. And they are demanding customers. They want only high-end vendors and high-end graphic arts people. They're just like you would expect a Hollywood, designer. You got to kick butt and get it done and show me something yesterday. That's not good enough, These guys were tough, and he was his name was Saul, and he was a pusher and a shover. He got a lot of good product design. The photography is amazing. I was lucky to be working on this project. I learned a lot from that. Any job you're in, you try to learn as much as you can, And the Reebok job was out of Acme Printing. Acme Printing was one of the #1 premier printing companies in the country. We printed the largest and helped designers, the largest corporate annual report of any company in the world, and that would be General Electric. General Electric has more shareholders than any other company, and therefore they need to print a book, and every shareholder gets one of these books, and then the beginning of it has pictures and graphics, and the back has all the numbers and financial. And that was an awesome feather in our cap to be printing that. Got to work with numerous designers all over the Boston area and up the East Coast. I had to travel. I traveled to Atlanta, to Florida, to visit these graphic designers to help them coordinate their work with production and manufacturing. And you may design something, but then it may not work in the printing area because you put too many colors in one area, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't overlay properly. And I can suggest some hints. Sometimes you put tiny thin type and no one can read it, but that's what I want. That's my design. Well, we're going to help that tiny thin type by cheating a little and do these techniques and stuff. So a lot of that is all part of the graphics field. Typography is a big part of it, I would say. But then from Acme Printing, we were in the printing industry is a changing world. It's kind of not the same as it was 20 years ago. There aren't big print shops that do local printing stuff like you see. There's small local shops that do your basic, raffle tickets and stuff. And then there's the mega shops that do a lot of digital. It's all digital now. And we actually have our school, a digital press, one of the only high schools in the country with Heidelberg Indigo digital press. And it's pretty impressive. And it can print on plastics and mylars and produce and make things like that. So with that being getting involved in that, it's kind of cool to have see your stuff in print and see it actually completed. You create a design, you're on the computer, you don't know how it's going to look when the real world comes along, and then bam, you actually make things. And now it's my goal is to guide people, designers and the young designers, is to help them realize their talents, their creativity, and help them realize how to get it to actually work in the real world. Many times people make a really cool graphic on their iPhone and they want to send it to somebody, and somebody looks at it and puts it on Facebook and it's all fuzzy. Well, why is that? So you've got to learn why those things happen. And I like to help people learn resolution and what works and how sizing and things like that. I also teach a photography course to adults, which is a lot of fun. That gets crazy. And these are non-scouting adults. But what I do for the curriculum is, of course, use photography merit badge. So I do I run through these non-scouting adults, and they're doing the photography merit badge. And at the end of the session, I award them the photography badge, and they're all impressed. I open their minds a little bit to scouting and how much fun it is. And these old, usually it's senior citizens. So they got these fancy $600 cameras and they don't know how to use them. And at the end of the 6 weeks course, they're walking out with photography merit badge. So that's kind of cool.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I involve scouting in everything I do. I can't help it. Just, I went into the office a year ago. This council is ramping up, and I help with the graphics and do the logos, and I take someone else's graphic and just make it viable for other people. Take someone else's editing and clean it up and put it out there. I make people look good. That's what I like to do. I like to make people look good. You know, barbers make you look good. You know, get a little haircut, trim. I can do that for your graphics.
That's
But,
cool. And we appreciate how you put scouting into everything. So you mentioned you came from Missouri and you joined scouting over here. What would you say was like the highlight? Now, I know that you come from a very large family. Was everybody involved in scouting?
yeah, I'm the oldest of 9 boys. I have 8 brothers, believe it or not. We're all scouts. We were all involved in scouting. Currently, I have maybe 4 or 5 nieces and nephews that are involved in scouting in one shape or another. All my kids were involved in it. My son followed in my footsteps and went to Watauga and worked at camp there in his own right, did his own thing. My daughter, my other sons and daughters, triplets, they worked all at Watauga and they loved it. My daughter did a cool design for the Watauga 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now. It's an orange shirt with the Craig Retta whaleboat. She had drawn it on the whiteboard in the office at the camp, and the camp director just like was, "Whoa, this is so cool! I want that on the T-shirt next year." And so she said, "Daddy, you know," when we sat down in front of the computer and we realized the graphic and we made it work for a patch design, which was laser cut, a T-shirt design, and all that, and put in. You have to think about colors and how costly that can be, and so forth. But yeah, we've our many of my brothers, or all of my brothers, have been in scouts one way or another. Some stay longer. My younger brother Curtis, he's a scoutmaster now, was a cub master, and everywhere we go, we spread scouting. You know, we keep that in the family. That's for sure.
Would you give scouting credit into your career path? Like or did you kind of realize that you wanted to get into graphic arts, like you said, when you were helping your dad, or did maybe was there like art merit badge, or did something grab you before, even not even scout related? Like, were you always an artistic child through school?
Yeah, not so much art, because my dad could actually draw. He would sit in front of the TV and draw Walter Cronkite. It looked amazing. And I could not draw, but I could put the type around Walter Cronkite, or I could do that. But I wasn't into it as much. And then when I was in Scouts, actually in the Order of the Arrow, I was the editor for Turtle Topics, the newsletter. And every week, the lodge chief would pick me up at my house, drive me over to the office. We'd go into the basement. We'd work on this laying out, and we had news to report. How do we, what headlines to write? We had to put pictures with it. Pictures are always better than just words. And all of that had to happen within a time frame and in a timeline. And I got into it. I loved the pressure. I loved getting the right story out. I loved putting the words together, making it clean. We had worked with the council executive at the time, was running the printing press. He would go in the basement. We'd get the negatives, make the plates, and he would run the printing press. And I got, Chris, he called me, "Chris, could you set this up for me? Help me out?" And I loved making people look good when they're done. Everything comes out, it's done. It's cool. You had a hand in producing that. Scouting definitely affected my career choices, just because after that I went to college. Graduated high school, says, I'm going to go to college for this stuff, not just doing newsletters and pay stub, but I'm going to learn all the aspects of it, the new technology. And I went to a technical school in Springfield, Mass, and because it was close enough, because I could still go to camp, because I wanted to go to camp in the summer. Can't miss that. And that was so. I spent 6 summers at Watauga, and 2 or 3 of them I went back to school. And then after that, I got a job out of it. And then, still going to camp, still doing graphics. You see some of my work around the camp, or a lot of Brian LaBeo's work that I've cleaned up. A lot of stuff. I'm wearing a T-shirt design from day camp last year. We had Myth and Magic. See the dragon? That's kind of cool. We do that. It's just fun to put your stuff out into the world and get people. Last night we finished a patch design for the Arrow of Light weekend that we're going to be doing, and the young people just wanted to use last year's design but change the colors, and I show a couple of variations, and there you go. To get good in the field is just not holding yourself back. Just be creative, let it out, try something. If you like it, maybe understand why things look good. Learn the principles of design, balance and hierarchy of importance, things like that. Learn what those things are, and then what you make of it is probably good. And then most people have an eye for what looks good in the real world. You look at that beautiful sunset skyline, and it looks beautiful, and you know why it does. And you apply those ideas to your own graphic design.
What kind of school, I mean, no, I have what kind of school? You went to a technical school. What kind of classes did you take at the technical school that reflected the career path that you were choosing in terms of technical, design?
Well, there was a layout and design. There was art. There was graphic design, which is different than layout. Layout is more of a mechanical, how you put things together on a piece of paper at the time. And most of my education had a technical background, so it was on equipment that is now outdated. We didn't have Adobe when I went to college. There was no such thing as Adobe. The PostScript world today, the graphic arts world, which I actually kind of lucky because when I got out of college, the print shops that I worked at were riding the wave of what is now known as desktop publishing. I was probably one of the first kids in the world that was doing desktop publishing when they invented the Mac and the laser printer. And all that stuff was happening. And at night, we would practice and use this thing called a Linotronic 100, a Lino 100. Oh, what the hell's that? Well, that thing's got pixels and bitmaps and it hooks up to a Mac, and you hit a print and it comes out wicked quality, high res. Wow, this is cool. So at night, what do? We bring the scouts in and we do our stuff. We learn. So I use the scout stuff to learn all my new equipment. Did that since back in the 1900s when everything was black and white.
So would you say, so from the 1900s up until now, I mean, there's no more typositors, right? Where do you think the graphic design job or business would be in about 10 years? Like, do you think, I mean, because we've seen the Mac, we've seen laser printers, and like you said, desktop publishing. Where do you think it would be 10 years, 20 years from now?
Well, I can't say. I know it'll be, digital computer driven, of course. I don't think it'll be like the Tony Stark, wave your hands and make things look really good in the air and then hit print. I don't think that's going to be there yet, but it may, who knows? I don't know if I could keep up with that kind of, thinking. But I do remember when I was in the printing trade, we thought we had all the answers to every single graphic problem that any designer could present to us. And then the industry created this new thing in the computer world in Adobe software called transparency. Now, transparency wasn't a real thing when you're printing. Everything's flat. It has to be certain colors ink, lays on a paper, goes on a slope screen, whatever it does. Transparency is a see-throughable factor to these colors. And how do we make that work? Oh my God, the machines didn't work. It caused errors. It was this creative thing that looked really awesome on the screen and on websites, but you couldn't get it off the website onto print or media. And we figured it out. We had new equipment, new technology came along, and it made transparency viable in the print world. And there's actually transparency used in everything we do and don't realize it. But so that was a technology I didn't think we would get around it. Caused lots of consternation in the trade. We go to trade shows, people raising their hand, what the hell, you're not going to ask about transparency, are you? And now we're moving on, and who knows what the software will be in the future. I firmly believe that the Adobe Creative Cloud, Creative Suite, whatever they call it today, will definitely be in the forefront of it. I still keep my knowledge of other tools such as Quark Express, which is still a huge viable. Quark is actually better in a lot of ways, but we don't apply it as we could. It creates websites too, right from the design feature, which a lot of people doing web design, they're frustrated with the tools online. You can only, everything's frame driven. But the Quark is you be free flowing, and then you turn it into the design afterwards, So yeah, there's a couple questions here I guess we could look at, but yeah, Adobe is definitely the Adobe Suite. So the major 4 tools for Adobe, or 3 anyway, that all graphic designers get involved with in one shape or another is Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. And then you have a couple of other pieces and parts that are complementary to that, but those are the 3, that's the triumvirate graphic design tools. If you're a graphic designer and you have a tool belt, you have the hammer, the saw, and the drill. You know what I mean? The Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. Each of them have play their own part in the world. I tend to use Illustrator as my #1 premier creative tool. when the Boy Scout Council says, hey, we need an ad for, Chuck Blanchett's going to run a program. I need an ad. Okay. I open up, the first thing I do, click on Illustrator, open up a blank page or pull up a template or two. Actually, that's not the first thing I do. I actually do some research. Research is key to what your ideas are. I go to the internet, pull down some ideas, throw out, do some searches on words. I go to type fonts, I look up those things, and then I go into Illustrator, put the pieces together in my head. So Adobe programs, Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. InDesign is strictly speaking page and document building. So if you're doing just one page, you can do that in Illustrator. If you're doing multiple pages that have to align and fit, and brochures and folding and all that stuff, InDesign may be better for you. InDesign has more constraints to keep it working for the print industry and production, where Illustrator is more free flowing, and vector graphics. Vector is very key to know what that means. It means that you could take and stretch and scale and move and size and make this as big as you want, and it's still crisp and clean. But raster data, Photoshop, images, JPEGs, those things, you can make them look good, but then when you start making them bigger and bigger, you start seeing the jaggies and the edges and the fuzzies, and that's not. So you got to understand that and apply that when it's needed. So those are the big, tools that we use in the creative arts industry or graphic arts industry. And now I have an iPad with an Apple Pencil, and I can use pressure sensitive touching and drawing and create graphics like that. In fact, on the camp T-shirt that has the background that Lizzie drew with the Craig Rider whaleboat, we needed to put the island up there. Well, we grabbed a bunch of trees from the graphic program to make it look pine tree. Those are stamped templates. I didn't draw every pine tree, but the island is a unique shape. And I said, well, Lizzie, this is your drawing. Can you draw me an island? I handed her the iPad and an Apple Pencil. She drew the island the way she wanted it, took that element, brought it into my Illustrator vector, and there you go. I see another question here about more technical training or artistic training based on the digital focus. Well, I find that having a more technical training background helps you with problem solving and troubleshooting. I find that when I work with the more creative types, I mean, not that I'm not creative, but I don't sit out in the garden and with a pencil and just draw with the clouds above me. I kind of, I take creative ideas and clean them up. A lot of kids in the Order of the Arrow, they design their graphics in design, and they do them on some tool, some app on a phone. And because I don't know the name of the app, I mean, well, no offense, but they're not the tools that make things. No, it works for a postcard maybe, but then we try to print the postcard. There's no bleed in the edge, and you have white corners and things like that don't work. So I have to repair it or fix it. So I find that more technical training has helped me. And I also do like to do carpentry. So I feel like I'm a carpenter with Illustrator. And Adobe Illustrator is a drawing program, and I feel like I'm putting the lumber together, put the walls and put it all pieces, and now you make it all, and I put a carpeting in, and what colors.
That's so funny how you mentioned carpenter, because the whole time I'm thinking on a music aspect that you're more of a conductor. You're taking the layout, you're taking the copy, you're making it arranged, you're having the whole, the staff of the music, you're bringing it all together to have your big final concert, with all the related set of concepts that you have to deal with. That's funny how you said carpenter. Yeah, I would go either way.
Well, I mean, I like the conductor idea with all these pieces together, because if you were to see if I were to zoom out on that ad that we just pasted on Facebook, you would see in the outside paste browns all these things I tried and didn't like. They're still off to the side. Just like, well, I might want to, if I'm conducting, I might want to see some violins play over here, and that doesn't sound right. I'm going to hold them off. Let's try the horn section. Oh, I like some more of that. I'll put we need some more cowbell in the back, that kind of thing. Yeah. So pasted and sent out to all these people that have to make it go here and put it there and whiz bang it there. You have to deliver a product. You have to finally deliver something. The final cut song isn't, you hear these, everybody talk about the songs that they had to have it edited down to 3.2, 3 minutes, 20 seconds. And that's what has to happen. You have to finally say, okay, I'm done. This is going to be it, and then everybody's going to have an opinion. Oh, why didn't you do this? Or there's too much in there. And I've been known to shove a lot of 10 pounds of graphics in a 5-pound bag, as they say. Many friends of mine, oh, Chris, can you design me a business card? And they give me paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff they want on it. Really?
Oh.
It's a business card. It's Tom Markham is the worst. He gives me 5 paragraphs of stuff. Okay, let's also put in, can you put a bullet? I need a starburst on one corner. Tom, it's a business card, okay? I'm gonna have to use both sides to get what you need in there.
Would you say that, do you come across more often than not that the best method sometimes might be less is more to get the point across or to make it like a sellable item, digitally speaking?
Well, that is a concept. Less is more. You always come back to your, you may fall short of getting the message across. You may be overly doing it. Less can be more. Yes. So once you get recognizable concepts, so now you're talking marketing, and you follow what they call the hierarchy of design. So what's the most important thing, and then what's the second most important thing, and then you can't let it go without that detail. So you have these 3 levels. Any more than that, now you're asking for extra. But if you just wanted to put out a message, put the bam, the wow, the headline, and nothing else, well, maybe that's not enough. That is simple. Less is more. Well, we know what they're talking about. Go camping, my friends. But then what? Well, where do I go camping? What's the phone? Where's the? How do I sign up? What's the website? So yeah, go camping, my friends, and then a little www down at the bottom. Maybe that could work. Absolutely. You try things and you see how it goes. And that's what I love about it. The graphic arts industry is constantly changing. I never do the same thing again over and over. It is nice that once in a while a customer will say, hey, can you redo that one job? I just want a type change. Oh, yeah, sure, no problem. That's the easy money. But it doesn't challenge you anything. I could do some changes, but it doesn't challenge me. Like the ads that we're doing, these creative art ads for these weeks. Now we're recycling. But I got a new challenge from Darren and Angela. They want Watucka Wednesdays, so we got to come up with something for Watucka Wednesdays, whatever that is.
There you go. I know, but yet to be determined. So we're coming up at the end of our time. What kind of advice would you give any young scouts, like if they're kind of itching towards going into your career path, or any life advice in general?
Well, when kids come through this shop and we give them a tour, a key basic skill is learn to type. The one fingering, learning traditional typing gives you a basic skill. Like, the same thing with a scout. You got to have your totem chip, right? You can't go into handicraft. You can't go down to the, whatever area you want to be in. You got to tie knots and sharpen your knife. So learn the type, the keyboard, learn how to use the keyboard. The mouse and the pencil are natural to you, but the typing will speed up your effort, speed up your work. So and when I graduated college, I had to type 30 words a minute. So then I thankfully learned that one skill. But always be open. Photography is a good complementary interest for the graphic design world. Get a camera, take pictures, work them into your designs, things like that. So I don't know if that answers your question, or if anybody else has any other questions or whatever, but.
Right, that answered mine. But yeah, so that's good. The basic skills will probably get you the farthest. I mean, I myself have finally grown out after 20 years of college away from the 2-finger approach of typing.
Very good.
Integrated more fingers, so that's good.
You gotcha. The learning to type is key, but also learn the Adobe skill. Learning your graphic arts skills. Adobe is a good tool to have. Taking online courses are great for that stuff. Practice, try it. Don't be afraid to break it. Don't be afraid to break it. Be creative.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for coming out and doing this. It was great, and good to hear from you, and hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks for coming out and doing the speaker series today.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Cynthia. You bet.